What is up, jabronis? JJ back here talking a little NFL. Same face, new place. We were just talking a little college football about 20 minutes ago, and now we're talking NFL. I know that a bunch of you guys are probably either jerking off or watching college football or about to watch college football, and I respect that. You can watch this video, obviously, anytime before NFL starts tomorrow, or if you're in here watching, jump in the chat, say hello. No need to be shy. If I'm here and you are, we can talk. We can communicate. So with that said, interesting week of NFL coming up, right? A lot of juicy spots. I think it's always tough to kind of understand and I guess calibrate in terms of what good spots are versus great spots. And the more you target great spots throughout the year, of course, you'll be better off for your bankroll, and it's all helpful, right, and all relevant in that respect. I have a few plays I like for tomorrow, so I'll go through them in this video. And again, whenever you get to watch it, great. If you're here, though, that's great as well. So anyway, I guess without further ado, we could just get started. I will go through each of these games briefly, and again, I will give you a bet I like in the spots that I do, right? Okay, so I guess we could start with. Let's see here. Bears, Bengals. So current line. Hold, please. Bears minus 2.5 over the Bengals. Now total 45. I really wanted to fire on the Bears here, 2.5. My concern. You have a team in the Bears that consistently seems to find ways to lose games under Nagy. I don't even know, actually. But you want to talk about giving a guy a long leash. I mean, woof. Andy Dalton looked good. I thought the running back looked good as well. And then either way, Allen Robinson looked. Montgomery looked good. I thought that overall the Bears played a really good game against the Rams and still lost by 3 touchdowns. So I don't know if that's the Bears are that bad or the Rams are that good. Obviously, Stafford definitely improves that offense from Goff, and we kind of saw that. We kind of saw that early on. And the Bears defense, you bring up a good point out. It's hard to tell how good or bad they are. Again, it's a tough test with Stafford in there, right? And I think an interesting stat I found was last year under Goff, I believe they had, I want to say it was 2 total plays over 50 yards, pass plays, all season under Goff. They had 2 50-yard plays in the first half with Stafford in that game. So it's definitely a different dynamic offensively. And it is tough for me to want to jump in front of or figure out what version of the Bears I'm going to get here. And the Bengals under Joe Burrow, if there's one thing they've done under Burrow, it's keep games close. Now, this spread is small, though. I think what Burrow has done excellent, I mentioned this in the last week for why I like the Bengals, is that Burrow keeps games close. And I know he got hurt, and that kind of really changed the dynamic of the Bengals team moving forward. This is a close spread. It's not going to surprise me if Burrow is in this late and can do some magic. I thought he looked really good in his return. Overall, it keeps me away from it. We'll call it the smallest of leans, under 45. I do think this is a game of field position. I do think you will get both teams that don't want to take too many risks. And again, assuming you have a close game, I don't want to be the one laying points. But again, I can't back the Bengals getting less than a field goal on the road. I mean, I think that's pretty ballsy. I mean, I hope most of you would understand why that is. The Bengals have a bad defense. The Bengals, don't get me wrong, their offense looks good, but their offensive line is terrible. So Burrow's got to get the ball out quick. And the Bears do have a decent defensive line led by Matt. So overall, though, I will dodge this game with, we'll call it the slightest of leans on the under at the number of 45. Okay, so next up, Browns, Texans. This will likely be your most popular pick for survivors, and deservedly so. I don't think there's a better spot to take the Browns all year in survivor leagues. With that said, the Browns do have other juicy spots this year where you can target them in weeks where there's not the best options. So you can leave the Browns in your back pocket. It is just hard to fathom the Browns losing this game. I will say this. If you can get this number to, is this 12.5 or 13 right now? This is 13. I'm just trying to see if it's 12.5 anywhere. The reason why 12.5 is key is because technically, is this 12.5 at Circa? Is it 12.5? No, it's not 12.5 anywhere else. So at 12.5, you can pump the Browns. You can pump the Browns in a sweetheart teaser with two other teams. Sweetheart teasers are those 10-point teasers. So just something to keep in mind there. But all things considered, what was I going to say? The Browns, you should, and the problem is it's a big spread, right? The Texans aren't that good of a team. And yet, you have, this is a big number though. The Browns should control the clock. The Browns should run the ball very effectively. Houston, while they did win it last week, it was against Jacksonville, and Jacksonville was a bit of a mess. Overall, though, this will be a stay away spot for me with the Browns, a target potentially, obviously, for survivors, but no bet for me in this game. Moving on, Colts Rams. So this is going to be one of my best bets. And I know this isn't popular by any accounts. I like the Colts here, and it probably won't surprise because I'm a Wentz guy. I just think that you're either, after this week, you're either going to tell yourself, wow, what a ball drop. The Rams are a Super Bowl team, and the Colts are the exact opposite, and I would have laid 10 with the Rams in this spot. Or you're going to look at it as, I cannot believe I actually laid 3.5 on the road against this Colts team with a good offensive line, a leader-type quarterback, a good running game, and an above-average defense. So I think there's a few different angles here. I think overall, for me, if we're talking value, which is what we're always talking in the NFL, 3.5 is a fat number here behind the Colts at home. I think that, I know Carson Wentz didn't play well. I know his advanced numbers were not good at all either. I just think that we are getting an overreaction line here with the Rams. I think that it's interesting though, right? Because under Stafford, this team's a lot more explosive. I just mentioned how they had the 250-yard passes in the first half. The Colts, I'd expect to be better in this spot, better than the Bears were. And offensively, I think the Colts kind of figure it out. I mean, remember, this is an offensive team led by a good offensive head coach, a decent coordinator. And again, they have my question, of course, is the athletes at receiver. Michael Pittman's okay, but he hasn't really become that next step, and Hilton's still out. There is some issues there, and tight end's a question mark also. So I get it. There's some question marks with this team, but I think that, to me, this is the purest of overreactions. And we'll find out if that's the case or not, obviously, after this game. But I think that if these two teams met week 1, what do you think this line is, right? Probably either Colts plus 2.5 at the high side. There ain't no way if these two teams met week 1, this was going to be 3.5. So you have to ask yourself, how much do you value the week 1 data you saw from both teams? Because the Colts data was bad and the Rams data was good. Small sample size, yes. And I think that we will get a better version of the Colts moving forward. And not to say I think we'll get a worse version of the Rams. I just think that this is your typical overreaction type line. And I think that people want Carson Wentz to be so bad at football that they forget, how good he was in his MVP season a few years back when he was healthy. I think that gives him an extra week to get his feet under him. And I like the fact that he was mobile. I think there was a little fears that he might not be as mobile, but he was. And I think that overall, I think the number is just too big. I think at 2.5, I don't play it. At 3.5, it's an auto bet. 3 being such a key number, that overall, I think that I have to back the Colts in this spot. I like them getting the hook, and overall, keeping this a close game late, where I think they could obviously upset, but I do think this game stays close within the number, and that's kind of why I have to back the Colts here. So I know, tough bet to make, but I do like the Colts. Okay, so Bills, Dolphins, Dolphins. Another interesting game, right? Because what do we make from that first week? I think you could easily say the Bills lost a game they shouldn't have, and the Dolphins won a game they shouldn't have. So when you take both of those factors in, do you just blindly bet the Dolphins, grabbing the hook here? I don't know. I think that Josh Allen, if there's one thing he's done well, it's destroy the Dolphins over the last few seasons. That's for sure, specifically last season. And has Josh Allen regressed? I don't know. I mean, he got his money, right? You always worry about that complacency factor, right? When dudes get their money and get paid. But I don't know. It's one game. I thought he played well against Pittsburgh, or at least decent against Pittsburgh. And I think that the score, what happened in the second half was just odd to me on a few different occasions. So are you getting a small number with Buffalo? Maybe. Are you getting a big number with Miami? Maybe. There's just too many arrows going in different directions for me in this game that I'm going to stay away. But just worth noting, Josh Allen has done some serious damage against this Dolphins team. And overall, it's tough for me to like any side here. Jets, Patriots, lined at currently 6, total 43. What do you make, right? Zach Wilson. Look, I liked him at BYU. Not that I didn't think he would be a good quarterback at this level. I think that people forget how much goes into you being a good quarterback in the NFL. And a lot of it's not exactly in your own control. I think that you look at Pat Mahomes as a perfect example, right? He gets his first year behind Alex Smith, a very smart quarterback that doesn't really turn the ball over. He gets put into a situation where he's with Andy Reid, arguably the best offensive play caller in the history of the game. He gets, pound for pound, the most talented pass-catching tight end in the league. He gets the fastest wide receiver in the league. And, it's just a plethora of potential success for a guy like Pat Mahomes. Let's change that scene around and talk Zach Wilson for a moment. So Zach Wilson goes to a team in the Jets that has a spotty O-line. Their best receiver is a guy who was the second-string receiver for Tennessee for a long time, 5-6 years. Their second receiver, because of injuries, is an undersized kid from Ole Miss. Now so they'll get, I think they get Crowder back this week, which might help. They have a spotty tight end. They have a spotty run game, which is a committee. What I'm getting at is for a quarterback to be successful in the NFL, the other parts need to be there. Head coaching is also not really there for the Jets either. So, I think Zach Wilson could be good, but I think the parts around him aren't. So it makes it difficult for him to be good at his position, or at least look good at his position. Because I think that goes without saying, right? Even your jobs day to day, right? Your full-time job, whatever. You can only make yourself look so good at your position. I think at the end of the day, the people you surround yourself with inherently can make you look better or make you look worse at your job. And I think that the people around Zach Wilson are not going to make him look better at his job. And he's going to have to overcompensate. And I don't necessarily know he has the skill to do so. With that said, it's a pretty big number here in favor of the Pats. But I really, contrary to Zach Wilson, and I brought this up for a slew of reasons, as you might see, Mac Jones, I believe, is in a situation to succeed. He's under Josh McDaniels, a great offensive mind. He's under Bill Belichick, one of the greatest head coaches of all time, arguably the greatest. He's got decent weapons around him. He's got good tight ends. He's got a good O-line, one of the best in football. So to me, you just have so much disparity here, right? And when you take those factors in, it's a big number on the road. But what we do know about the Patriots and what we do know about Bill Belichick is rookie quarterbacks against Belichick, the numbers are ridiculous. So, yes, it's 6, and it's a small number, kind of. But it's a touchdown. I think this will be a popular money line parlay play. First of all, I think this is a spot where if the Jets happen to score first, you just pound the Patriots money line. To me, it becomes, I'd argue, even a 1.5 unit play on the Pats money line if you get them minus 110 if they go down early. This Patriots team is better, I'd argue, at almost every position. So, yes, the number is big at 6, but it is tough not to like them in this spot. I don't want to lay the points, though. I hate laying points like this on the road with a team that has a few question marks going in, which New England does. So with that said, I'm going to be off this game. But if the Jets do go up, this is a live spot for me, and I will stay away pregame. All right, so next up, Minnesota, Arizona. So as you know, I liked Arizona last week, and I faded Minnesota last week. So now these two heads kind of collide. What I like about Arizona earlier in the years, and I said this before, Cliff Kingsbury early in seasons is just better. And I don't know if that has to do with he comes up with new good schemes early on in the year and then coaches adjust to them and he doesn't change them or modify them after. But even if you go back to his Big 12 at Texas Tech, he had some really strong starts to his seasons with Pat Mahomes underneath him, and obviously other starts as well. And then even in Arizona last year, they had a great start and they just kind of fizzled, right? Here they had another great start. They absolutely destroyed Tennessee last week. So is that more Tennessee or more Arizona? I don't know. But what I do know is you normally get a good version of Arizona early on. That alone is what's deterring me from liking Minnesota in this spot, because I actually think 3.5 is a big number here. And I do think this is an overreaction. I think that the fact that you can get Minnesota plus the hook would seem like a decent bet. But Cliff Kingsbury, and the way he has Arizona prepared early on in the seasons for his coaching career, young coaching career at that, has been incredible. And I think it's very difficult for me to feel comfortable targeting a fade of them early in season. So that's why I'm kind of off this game. The total at 50.5, that is a big number. You would figure things would be okay. I think if you like the over in this game, I think you have to bet Minnesota's team total over instead. Because if you're betting the over in this game, you are more or less counting Minnesota to show up and score points in this game. And let's be honest, they should. But I think what I'm getting is instead of betting the over full game, I think you can kind of neutralize Arizona out of the equation, and you can bet Minnesota's number, which is probably, 23.5? So for me, I don't like any spot here. But again, I'm just giving you a heads up. If you like the over, I think you should bet the Minnesota team total over instead, because I think Minnesota does score here. I just don't know if they can do enough to actually win the game, because Kingsbury's teams look a lot better early on in the season. So it deterred me. Okay, next up, 49ers, Eagles. This is going to be another best bet for me. 49ers last week had an interesting backdoor situation where they absolutely dominated the Lions. And the Lions are going to be a bad team, so that's fair, right? We kind of know that. I thought 49ers looked really good. And for those that think Mostert's being out's a big deal, I mean, he got injured in early in the first quarter anyway, so it really didn't deter their offense. My only concern is Garoppolo played what I consider a really good game, and I just find it tough to believe that he's going to progress as needed game to game with that type of success. I just think Philly's a bit of a flash in the pan. I know that they played well yesterday. I know last week, I know Jalen Hurts looked good. This line to me is just a bit egregious. I mean, San Francisco's healthy for the most part. I know they're missing a few cogs. Obviously, they're running back in their best corner. But their corner's been injured anyway. It's not like he's been healthy all around. So overall, I think that the Niners are in a good spot to succeed. And all things considered, this is a small number for me. And the Niners, if there's one thing, for me, it's a few different things. We have the coaching mismatch. I think we have the better quarterback. We have the better O-line. We have the better defense. To me, there's just so many factors that make the 49ers a better team. And I think you're just getting this blind overreaction with Philly. People like this Philly offense. It's a big fantasy-ridden offense. People love Jalen Hurts. People like Miles Sanders. People like Jalen Reagor in the receiving core as a potential team that's going to take strides this year. I just think it's all of an overreaction and a bit of a facade. And I think that you're getting a strong number here on San Francisco. And I don't want to pass this spot up. So I think penning your book, you can get 3.5. You can get 3 or 2.5. But I think that 2.5 would be key if you can get. I know DraftKings open that number up at -125 for those into that. But -3 San Fran, -105 DK. That's a strong spot for me. And one of my best bets. So Denver, Jacksonville, next game up. What do we got here? Denver -6, total 45. This is actually another one of my best bets. And my last best bet one of my last best bets, actually. Overall, you have what I did. So what I took away from that Jacksonville game, under Urban Meyer, this team is playing super fast. Okay, they were, I believe, by far the fastest tempo team in the NFL week 1. Now, do I think they just slowed themselves down after week 1? I don't. And the fact that they're going to speed this game up, I loved what I saw from the Broncos offense. First of all, Teddy Bridgewater. It's remarkable to me that he's gone from so many teams, because he's almost like a Fitzpatrick in my eyes, because he's good enough where he can start for teams, but his upside is limited enough where the team that has him doesn't want to keep him. So it becomes this bit of a battle where, do you want to pay him? How often do you want to continue to be 8-8 or 9-9? Denver thinks he's the answer because they think they can win with their defense and a safe quarterback, which you can't argue, right? Bridgewater is that. I thought Bridgewater did tremendous on third downs last week. I thought a lot of different things with the way that game played out against the Giants. This defense is incredible and likely causes some turnovers for Trevor Lawrence, but I don't think this defense is excellent. I think that they looked good against the team in the Giants that just looked unprepared. And Saquon Barkley, I don't want to say he's ass cheeks, but man, he's been tough to watch. It's been a lot like Zeke recently, right? Zeke's been tough to watch. I don't want to get on a tangent for this game, but the Jaguars have to figure out their situation at running back, because it was interesting. They weren't really using James Robinson. They were kind of using this mix of, I think, Carlos Hyde and a few other guys. It was weird, but they were throwing a ton and they were moving at a fast pace. And, I think that it's hard to imagine they're going to slow themselves down. And Denver's offense, I thought, was extremely efficient last week. And I think this total of 45 is low enough, or 45.5 is low enough at decent vig, where if the Jaguars are going to speed this game up, the Broncos offense looked good. The Broncos offense should look good again. Trevor Lawrence threw the ball 51 times last week, which for a rookie quarterback is not exactly common. I do think the spread is too big, though. I don't want to back Jacksonville, but I do think the spread might be a bit of an overreaction. But regardless, I do think you get points from Jacksonville in this game. And it's relevant because both teams should put pressure on the others to score. Jacksonville, while this is a tough test for them offensively against this Denver team, I like the pace that they're playing at. It should catch Denver off surprise a bit. I also like that Jacksonville continued to try to score regardless of how much they were down last week as well. I just think overall this is a team that you might look at it as, you got a really good defense from Denver and an offense that looked terrible in Jacksonville. I'd argue you have a bad defense in Jacksonville and a team in Jacksonville that when they're on offense, they're going to speed this game up, which could keep Denver out of rhythm defensively a bit and result in Jacksonville points. So overall, one of my best bets, over 45.5, Jacksonville, Denver. So that's, take that for what you will. Cowboys in trouble. Can't argue there. I mean, Cowboys are having some severe issues with the run injuries. I just realized, did I skip to the Vikings Cardinals at 4:00? What the hell's wrong with me? What the hell am I doing? Okay, so anyway, sorry about that. I did that before. We got a few other 1:00 games here. Steelers Raiders. Pitt -6.5. Total 47. Hold on one second. So, what do we make of the Raiders win, right? Is this a letdown spot for the Raiders? So a few things. The Steelers had no business winning that game last week as far as how the game played out. But with that said, good head coaches, veteran quarterbacks, you find ways to win games that you shouldn't. It just happens. The Raiders, I'd argue, went pound for pound with the Ravens and played pretty well. I mean, a bit of interestingness with the way that game was coached from Gruden. But it still worked out at the end of the day. You can bail yourself out. I'm pretty sure that Gruden would have had some interesting questions to answer had they lost that game, because there was some real unique decision-making late in that game a few different times. But they won, and of course, a win erases everything. Here, though, shorter week, traveling to Pittsburgh. You get the best version of Ben Roethlisberger at home. We kind of know his home road splits, which has kind of deterred me off this game. I don't like the total. I think that you could argue to play Pittsburgh unders at some point. You could argue to play Pittsburgh unders when Pittsburgh's on the road. At home, though, this team does tend to show up offensively. So maybe you target Pittsburgh's team total over to neutralize Oakland. But again, it's a big number. Overall, I'm going to stay away from this game entirely. I didn't love what I saw from Pittsburgh last week. It was a road game, though. Ben, it's crazy how much better he looks at home versus on the road. In Las Vegas, this just has the typical makings of a hangover win, of a hangover game. If they can get right for a 1:00 game on a short turnaround, kudos to them. I'm going to stay away from this game, though. Okay, so Panthers, Saints, another game that I skipped. The line is currently Saints -3. This Saints team is dealing with a lot of injuries, and it is hard to make out how good they are. Or it just seemed like the Packers in that second half just hung it up. I didn't look at that as that second half was just an odd second half from Green Bay. I thought that they played decent the first half, and then it got really weird really quickly, and then it just seemed like they gave up in the second half. So New Orleans blew them out, and Jameis Winston was weird. I think he was the second highest rated quarterback of the week, but he only threw for 150 yards and had 5 touchdowns. Again, it was just a weird game on many fronts. And so I don't know what to – I guess what I'm getting at is I know I'm kind of talking in different languages here, but I don't know what to make of New Orleans. And I know that New Orleans has a bunch of injuries right now. In Carolina, look, I liked what I saw against the Jets. I thought the Jets D-line was going to bother Sam Darnold, and it really didn't all that much. I thought McCaffrey underneath was big. I don't know if that was the Jets' game plan going in, that we were just going to let McCaffrey run around in the middle of the field for 10 yards a pop. But overall, I do think it makes sense to back Carolina at 3. I would have loved to have gotten 3.5 when it popped, but here we are. So I'm going to stay away from this one. Call it a slight under. I liked what I saw from Carolina's defense last week. I know it's the Jets, but I liked what I saw, and I definitely liked what I saw from New Orleans defense. My question marks are around the New Orleans injuries, which do plague me some concerns. I think Carolina's got some explosive weapons that can cause some issues for the Saints. But with all that said, I'm just going to stay away from this one. Okay, so next game up. I think I've done over all the ones, right? Let me see. Texans, Browns. Did I do Texans, Browns? Yeah, I did Texans, Browns. We did all these. Okay, so I did all. I don't know how I ended up skipping games. But either way, okay, so now we can go to the 4 o'clocks. I already did Vikings, Cardinals, Falcons, Buccaneers. Okay, so fat number, right? And this is another potential survivor pick. I'm not going to pick Tampa. I want them in my back pocket, though. Look, it makes sense, right, to back it makes sense to back the Bucs here, I guess. But again, as we often say, overreaction Monday, right? The Falcons looked awful against the Eagles. And the fact that they looked awful is in this line. Okay, it's why it's 12.5. But we're going to look at ourselves a few weeks from now, and we're going to either say, holy shit, Atlanta's one of the worst teams in the NFL. Or, holy shit, Atlanta just played a really bad game week 1, and they're actually a good team. My question marks with Atlanta revolve around their running back. So I know that they brought around the Tennessee offensive coordinator. And mind you, Tennessee, woof, without him, did they look like a different team running their offense. It's only one game, though, right? We're not going to overreact. We're rational humans. So as it relates to this game, look, you're not going to find me betting a lot of Tampa Bay games this year. That has more to do with I don't want to jump in to a team that the market loves, to a team that might get complacent at random parts of the year. Look, this Tampa team knows as long as they don't get injured, this is a almost definite playoff team, obviously Super Bowl contender. And you're going to pay extra juice back betting them each week. On the opposite end of things, you're going to find yourself struggling to understand why you faded Tampa when those games lose. I think this is a spot where Atlanta's offense likely figures themselves out a bit. However, after what I saw week 1, it is tough to pull the trigger on anything Atlanta related in this game. Woof. I mean, Matt Ryan looked all out of sorts. Ridley looked like the only guy that had any level of explosiveness to the offense. Now, Mike Davis didn't look bad last week. I think that, interestingly enough, he also had like a lot of red zone targets, I think, for running backs, which is maybe 2 or 3 at least, which I mean, that's not a lot in theory, but it's actually a lot when you consider he's a running back. And look, they're willing to feed him the ball without doubt. And they bring in Cordell Patterson a little more than I thought they were. And Wayne Gallman was out. Maybe Wayne Gallman's in this week. That may change things. Mike Davis, I'll be honest, I watched him run last week. I thought he looked good between the tackles. But this team, in my opinion, has some severe question marks at the running back position. And that makes it harder for a guy like Matt Ryan to succeed. Now, Julio Jones helped this team stretch defenses, right? Because a guy like Julio Jones, you need to keep safeties deep. It opens up your run game. It opens up your screen game. It looks like Ridley is not going to be that guy or be able to be that guy, and that makes it difficult for this offense to hum. And without the offensive line being extremely efficient and Matt Ryan lacking mobility, it's tough for this team to move the football. Now, Tampa Bay is obviously an excellent defense, one of the better ones in the NFL, which is why on a one-week turnaround, I would almost undoubtedly love to back the Falcons in this spot, grabbing 12.5. But woof, it is tough to watch. It was tough to watch them last week, and it scares me off it. With that said, I don't know who can feel comfortable betting the Falcons tomorrow. Again, numbers-wise, maybe it makes sense at 12.5, but I've seen this Tampa team just blow the doors off of teams they're supposed to, and it wouldn't surprise me if that happens tomorrow. I just can't back them in this spot, so I'm off there. Off this game entirely. I get why people would want to bet Tampa. I get why people would want to bet the Falcons. Total's a big number. So overall, I'm just going to stay away. I think that if you want to bet the total, inversely to what I said about the Minnesota game, I think if you want to bet the total, maybe bet Tampa Bay's team total over. Because I think you very well should get Tampa's number to get there, which is about 31.5, 31, 21. Yeah, it should be about 31, 32.5. So I like that. I if you want to bet the over, I would potentially go that direction. But again, you're not going to make a living, I promise you, betting team totals over 32.5 when they pop during the regular season pregame. So anyway, moving on. Chargers, Cowboys. Chargers -3, total 55. This should be a game that has fireworks for sure. But again, much like I said with the team totals, you will likely not make a whole lot of money betting overs when you see numbers like 55 pop. With that said, I don't know how either team is going to stop either team. So the problem with 55 is you need touchdowns, not field goals. And while that seems like a realistic possibility, it's just it's tough to love that, right? So here's what I'm saying. I think that Dak Prescott looked excellent in his debut. I think that he proved that he's still going to be mobile. He's going to find his guys. And even without Gallup, this team is super deep at wide receiver. And their offensive line is still good. My main issue with Dallas is Zeke. I mean, look, CeeDee Lamb's been excellent, and of course Cooper's great. And there was a Jarwin last week that looked good as well. Look, the passing game looked good. There's no doubts about that. My issue is Zeke Elliott just looks slow. Like, I'm not a scout. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I scout. I could be a scout for whatever. And this guy's 40s, this and that. His shuttle run. I know I went a little too far there, but there was a play, and I'm sure maybe you've heard it mentioned to you or you've seen it, where Zeke was one-on-one with a linebacker last week. A play that I consider a running back who's supposed to be elite will score, 80 to 90% of the time. Okay. A running back whose average will probably score 60 to 70% of the time. And your best running backs in football will likely score 100% of the time. It was like a stretch run where Zeke was one-on-one with a linebacker, where he could have either angled around him to score or plowed him over or juked him out or whatever. And he actually ended up losing yards on the play, one-on-one. And again, this is supposed to be one of the best running backs in football. He just looked slow. Again, I'm not at the point where I'm going to say he's ass cheeks yet, but it does concern me because if other teams see that, you can begin to loosen your box and make it tougher for Dak to throw the football. So interesting to see how that plays out. And if, that was just a one game, again, we're rational. We don't overreact to 1 week, but it was kind of scary. So Chargers, look, another excellent game from Herbert. Did what he had to win games. And I think that what goes without saying was those close games late last year, those are the games that the Chargers always lost under Lynn, okay? They won that game last week. And I think it goes to a lot of maybe this team's turning the corner now, right? I line this game fair, and I've talked a lot about the game to not even bet it. I think that the better offense is Dallas, the better defense is LA. And I think that it could be a close game, maybe some value on the dog here in Dallas, but Dallas is just riddled with injuries again now. So it's tough to love this spot with them, and the total's huge. There's going to be scoring, but it's huge. I'm just going to stay away from this game entirely. I do think if you can find a bet where both teams to score 20 points at like -150-ish, I know it's a lot of vig, it's hard to imagine both these teams not getting 20. I think it's harder to imagine both teams getting 30, but it's hard to imagine both don't get 20. So just a little food for thought. What's up, Chris? Jay, we're from back again. Richie, Steelers, Seattle, Chargers, Carolina, Buffalo, all BB this week. Yeah. Don't with you there. Okay, so Titans, Seahawks, last of the 4 o'clocks. Okay, so the question here becomes a few things because this line has moved quite a bit. And I think you have to decide on a few different things here relative to Tennessee. So Tennessee loses their offensive coordinator last year it was Arthur Smith, I believe. So, and we saw, what did we see, right? We saw how this impacted Matt Ryan with Kyle Shanahan, right? Where Matt Ryan put up all these crazy numbers for the Falcons with Matt Shanahan quarterback. with Michael Shanahan as the coordinator, and he goes to San Fran, right? Matt Ryan's numbers deplete entirely, okay? And then what happens, right? Tennessee does a similar thing, right? They lose Arthur Smith, and now Todd Downing calling the plays. In Tennessee, woof, they look totally different last week. Now, do we overreact and say that this Tennessee offense is just going to struggle, or was it just a bad week? So here's what I think. I think that this line is a bit of an overreaction, where Seattle's now getting a crazy amount of love, and it's not totally justified. This Tennessee team has so many weapons, okay? It is tough to imagine Tennessee does not score in this game or bounce back in this game. They did look out of sorts, though, for sure, against a team in Arizona that they should not have looked out of sorts against. With all that said, I think you can't bet Seattle here -6.5. I think you can if you'd like to include Seattle in a teaser. But I will say this, a 6-point teaser. I will say this. You are getting the worst of a teaser in that respect. What I like to do as it relates to teasers is I actually like to do the inverse. So take a line like this. It opens 3.5. It moves 6.5. If this line was to move to like 8.5, hypothetically, it won't. But if it was, you now have a line that's moved 5 points off the opening number. Then if you take a teaser and you jump that 6 more points up, you've actually taken a line that's moved 11.5 points off the number, which, look, let's be honest, it's a tremendous amount of movement off an opener, especially talking NFL. It's all a numbers game, right? So I don't like the idea of teasing Seattle now, knowing that you got the worst of the number. And I do think Seattle's going to be a popular teaser. Why? Because they're one of the few numbers that are 6.5. You're not going to – look, if you're teasing numbers at 6, I mean, what are you doing? Because you're losing a point. You can't tie in a teaser. You're not going to win on tying a teaser. So you're losing a half point there. So all things considered, there's a few different angles here where this total is super high, and I'd actually my issue. I'd love to bet Seattle's team total under here. To me, this is just an egregious number. It's got to be 6.5, 54. You're probably looking at like 31.5. It's such an egregious number. But Tennessee's defense scares the shit out of me, especially last week. Arizona just went up and down the field against this crew. So, yeah, a little scary from my end, and I'm going to stay away, all things considered. I always like to give you guys food for thought. I know sometimes I ramble a bit, but I just want to put you in my head for certain games when I'm thinking. This is Overreaction Monday, or Overreaction, I call it Monday because that's obviously the episode, Overreaction Tuesday. But there are some scary teams where we're either going to be looking back 5 weeks from now saying, wow, this team is fucking awful, right? Or it's like, we all just kind of overreacted. They're fine. This team's fine. We just kind of overreacted. And with Tennessee, that might be the case, but it also might not be the case. Get in the end zone. Let's go. What a boy, Myers. For those that don't know, if you're watching the Buffalo game with me, we're here. We're here. Let's make this extra point, and hopefully we get one silly score from here on out. All right. So, why is the Vikings line so weird? So, Damon, I will. You know what? I don't, just to keep the show going, Damon. I'll get to your question right after we're done with the last game or last two games. So yes, I know I rambled a lot about that game, but I don't like any side in it. I think that if you have to bet the game from a value perspective, it's tough not to want to bet Tennessee, because when you talk value and where the numbers are and overreacting, I think it does make sense to back Tennessee. But yes, it is very difficult to pull the trigger after what we saw week 1. So I get that. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm off the game. Okay. So Kansas City, Baltimore, Kansas City -4, Sunday Night Football. Finally, they're getting these games right? I feel like last year they did this a bunch where they had like the best game of the day on it at 1:00 while 8 other games were on. So finally we get an early season great Sunday Night Football game. It's in Baltimore, -4 Kansas City. Now, these two teams have met recently, and these lines haven't been like this. So Kansas City's getting a lot of love here. Interestingly enough, over the last 12 games, and I think my numbers are right here. I know you guys think like maybe I have all these numbers in front of me. I don't. I do a lot of my stuff early, and it's hard to keep all the numbers relative to these shows in front of me. I can pull them up, I guess. But Kansas City, last 12 games, 2-10 against the spread, 10-2 straight up. You want to talk about weird? This team just does not cover spreads, and it's super hard to compute, right? It's super hard to understand. And here we are, another total of 4. where Kansas City could win this game by 3 and not cover again. But look, you get Baltimore for a short week. What you will get is a hungry Baltimore. What I didn't like, so my best bet in the Baltimore game last week was Lamar Jackson over his passing number. And he got there, pretty easily, actually. And the game went into overtime. But he was already over that number mid-fourth quarter or early fourth quarter, whatever. What I didn't like was I continue to convince myself that, like, Lamar Jackson has to, in the offseason, prepare to become a better passer. Like, there's no two ways around it. Like, he gets the criticism from all angles. He's a great decision maker with the football in terms of running, passing. But his accuracy, I continue to convince myself that's going to change, right? It has to change. Has to. And it doesn't. Week in, week out, I thought for sure it's like, you know what? This is the game. He's playing Oakland. He's playing Vegas. He's in prime time. There's going to be good play calls for him to get guys in space. And the play calls are there, and he makes good decisions. And yet again, he's completely inaccurate on balls he should not be inaccurate on. Sorry, taking a sip of my mocha. You order a coffee. I'm a macchiato guy. I'm a mocha guy. I'm a cold foam guy. I know cold foam, you have your critiques on it. Blow me. Mocha's good. It's not good when it has the hot fudge in it because I don't need the sugar. But the mochas are good. I highly recommend them for those that don't get them. Okay, so anyway, back to football. Now, Baltimore. Jimmy Smith is out, or likely going to be out, potentially. And the numbers of this Baltimore team without him are pretty staggering, actually. And I don't know how correlated it truly is to the defensive numbers, but they're against the spread numbers with and without him are pretty eye-popping. And I don't know if he's going to play. He's still questionable, I believe. But they also have some other pieces that are out or potentially out, which causes concern, right? Because Pat Mahomes has shredded this defense when it's been at full strength. And now they're not going to be at full strength. So for me, at minimum, I think Kansas City goes over their number here, their team total. But again, my concern with Kansas City is for Kansas City to want to score points, they need the other team to score points. They're a weird team to watch in that respect. They kind of like coast. And they coast because they can, right? It's like, even when you watch Kansas City games, like I bet them last week live on the money line when they were like minus 110. It's like you watch the Kansas City games, it's like you never are really concerned they're going to lose the game. Like no matter who they're playing, and yeah, sure, they lose occasionally, but you're watching them week in, week out, and they drop to a money line pick 'em in most of their games, actually, because they don't cover spreads. And when they don't cover spreads, that means at some point during the game, they're likely going to be an underdog live to actually win the game. But time and time again, they find ways to win games, and it's not random. It's not, ironic. They just consistently do what they have to do to win games. But a lot of their scoring is correlated to their opponent's scoring. So my issue with their over and their team total is, can Baltimore score in this game? I did not like what I saw from Lamar Jackson last week or Monday. Again, I continue to convince myself he's going to be a guy that's going to take the next step passing. He had some open windows with no pressure and missed open guys. And again, it's just odd. I don't know. It's hard to fathom how, I'd assume this stuff bothers him, right? The critique from people. And I want to see him succeed. I think he's got tremendous upside, but it's just crazy to watch his inaccuracy at the quarterback position. And look, if he can get things right, and he might not have Hollywood Brown here. If he doesn't have Brown, that's going to really stretch his offense in a negative way. But I think 4 is a big number, and I can't lay it with Kansas City in this spot. I can't lay it because this team doesn't care about covering spreads. This team doesn't care. This team cares about winning games. So I think you can safely bet this team on the money line in game live. I think you can probably safely bet Baltimore if here's what I do think. I think this game is going to be inside of 10. So I think that, I know it sounds silly, but I think that I find it hard to believe if either of these two teams win by double digits in this game. So I think what that means is if Kansas City scores first, I think you can bet Baltimore plus 10. If Baltimore scores first, I think you can bet Kansas City on the money line. And I think that you're not going to be wrong doing either. I think that any other bet you make in this game, pre or during, I think is a silly wager. Now, I'm not talking props, but I'm talking just game spreads. I think it's silly. With that said, I think it'll be a fun game to watch. I think it's a great Sunday night football game, and I hope you all enjoy it. But either way, I am off that game. I know I kind of went in a bunch of different directions, but I hope it all makes sense. Richie's definition of saying he's with – cannot hit a target. I know, like, Richie says it best here. Like, it's crazy. Like we convince ourselves, I know I'm super guilty of this, that Lamar Jackson will get better as a passer. And, you watch him play and you're just like, what is going on? These guys are wide open. And look, I'm not sitting here telling you, oh, I could come in and I could be a difference man. No, I'm just saying that I don't know what has to happen, but he is like this close to being like an elite quarterback, like a good quarterback in this league where he'd be very difficult to stop. And, he's such a dynamic player that I just want to see him succeed throwing the football. And I hope it happens, but it's just been kind of tough for me to watch because I think he's a super talented player and I want him to succeed. Personally, I think he's super good. I loved him at Louisville. I mean, I watched him, as you guys know, I watched a ton of college football. I loved it. He was one of the most explosive players in college football. And they ran an NFL offense there too, which makes it even more puzzling. But needless to say, we'll move on. Sorry for the rant. Okay, so last but not least, Green Bay, Detroit. Another popular survivor pick. So what do you get from Green Bay, right? Did Green Bay, what was that first game? Was that a hiccup? Was that who this team could be? Has Aaron Rodgers signed out and now he wants to become a Jeopardy host? I don't know. I don't know specifically. I know sometimes, you think all these people have these answers remotely, but I don't know what's going on in Aaron Rodgers' head. I know that was tough to watch. What a throw, Jesus. I know that was tough to watch, but Detroit, what I liked about Detroit was I loved the grit from them. Oof, McCall, did he get hurt there? Pulling a hamstring? Ooh, I hope not. That kid's a talented player. I hope he's all right. All right, so Detroit. Sorry, I know I'm watching a few college games, one of them Buffalo, of course. What I liked about Detroit, I just mentioned this, was their grit. They were down a ton of points, and they did not give up. They backdoor covered that game, and I think that's got to make it scary, right? If you want to bet Green Bay, if you want to lay the points here with Green Bay, that's got to make it scary for you, knowing that this team is he wasn't even holding it. He was holding his shoulder. Yikes. So for this game, I feel like Green Bay looked really bad, and the market didn't adjust to it. So when I talk about overreactions, it doesn't look like the market overreacted at all to Green Bay, which might be a good thing for them. If you're a Green Bay fan, I guess it's a good thing. But I know coming in, Detroit was picked to be one of the worst teams in the league. And you have to ask yourself, what do you think this line would have been if these two teams played week one? I do believe if these two teams played week one, this line would be 11.5. But what did we see from Detroit? We saw from Detroit a team that was gritty, a team that wasn't going to give up. That's an easy touchdown. A team that was easy, wasn't going to give up. And what did we get from Green Bay? The exact opposite, right? A team that just didn't show up. Now, I think Green Bay, you can pick them in survivors. I think that the only issue is there's other times you can pick Green Bay, and I think there's a good argument here that if you're going to pick Green Bay in survivors, you want to get them out of the way, right? Because you're like, woof, it's a tough team to watch. It's a good spot to back Green Bay to just win the game. Woof, I'm with them there. But, I mean, we don't overreact, but yikes, that was a tough game to watch. I do think it could make sense to back Green Bay. I think that you're going to bet Green Bay. It might make sense to back them in the first half, but boy, doesn't that feel chalky, right? Betting Green Bay in the first half of this game. You'll lay 6.5. It just feels super chalky. What's up, Greg? And overall, so the total here, though, I'll talk on that for a moment. At 48, it's an interesting number, right? Because you'd assume Green Bay is going to get theirs, right? The reason why I say it's interesting, to me, this line you would figure most often would be like a 50.5 type number. And I do believe when these two teams met last year, I don't have the number in front of me, but I do believe when these two teams met last year, that number was about 50.5. So is this an overreaction from what Green Bay did, or do we think that – because if you remember, the Saints didn't exactly crush it offensively last week. They just happened to get good field position, and I thought Green Bay's defense didn't play poorly last week. And Detroit's defense looked bad, but, Detroit's not built to stop the run or the pass, I guess. To me, 48 says – the reason it says under to me is because Green Bay's offense has all the question marks. Detroit's offense has all the question marks, right? You got Goff, you got a depleted wide receiver core, a weird running back tandem back there with Swift and I forgot the other guy's name. Swift didn't even start. Green Bay's offense has question marks because what the hell happened last week? So I think that to me it would be a lean in the under, but I do think you can wait because likely over money is going to come in here. And I say that primarily because, again, when these two teams met last year, pretty sure this total was lined at 50 or 50.5. So under money is keeping this here, and I think that you should use that to your advantage. But I do think, like I said, when you break it down, the under kind of makes sense, right? Because all the question marks for both teams are more on the offensive side versus defensive side. So will that consistency be there? So overall, this will be a definite stay away spot for me spread-wise in the game. But the total is an interesting angle for me. And if this goes up to like 49, 49 and a half pre, it'll likely be a fire for me under. But other than that, that kind of wraps up the show. Richie, I will tell you this, live total 73 and a half tempting. I assume you mean tempting for the under? The only reason I say that, Richie, is because the total for this game, I think, was what, 58 and a half, 60? I mean, you're betting a total of 14 points above it. I know these teams have gone back and forth scoring, but if you're leaning under, I agree, because it looks like McCall, I don't know if he's going to come back. This offense definitely won't be the same without him. And Buffalo, I can't – look, I know I like their team total over, but I can't imagine this Buffalo team is just going to continue to go up and down the field. I'd also argue – I didn't get to watch it. I was doing this video, but that play call where I think they called it a fumble where he picked it up and ran it for an extra yard, it didn't look like we got a call in our favor there for Buffalo. I don't mind that look at all, though, Richie, under 73 and a half. If he looked okay, though, that is an interesting wrinkle, but that's a good look, Richie, 73 and a half under. All right, so guys, that wraps up the NFL show. I know I actually ended up talking longer than I thought I would, but I got through each game for you. A few tangents here and there, but all in all, look, have a good week with NFL. Be sure to gamble responsibly. Also, watch your college football games, right? Enjoy yourself. It's the weekend. Have some fun. I'll also be back with the Run Pure Sports crew talking DFS and some bets, of course, tomorrow. So, be sure for that if you're a Run Pure Sports member. Also, be sure to check us out, runpuresports.com, runpurebets.com. See what we're all about. You get all sports for one super low price, whether it's DFS or bets. So super cool in that respect. And you get a ton of live premium shows as well. So check us out, see what we're all about. But again, there will be a UFC show live today, I believe, with Jason and the crew. And then NFL live shows tomorrow. So other than that, folks, as always, stay safe, gamble responsibly, and run pure. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. And good luck with everything.